T.
How are you?
I'm excellent today.
Good. Excellent's a good thing to be.
It is a good thing to be.
Anything in particular making it excellent?
Um, I have a call tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock with my major New York client who's just back from 2 weeks of vacation. And I sent him the book Reinventing Organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about how it applies to his company, which is relatively small. There are 40 employees. Um, but he's a very eclectic CEO. He likes esoteric things.
Excellent. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see where he positions himself. I forget what color. I know that there's this issue that teal is really not the color that Lalou would have used to describe the next ring up.
Yeah,
But
green.
yeah, to move into green. So it'd be interesting. Does blue come right before green?
No, it's red, orange, green.
Red, orange, green. Right. So there's still plenty of red corporations
Or
out there.
red, amber, orange, and green. I'm sorry.
Red, amber. Oh, yeah. Okay. Red, amber, orange, and green. And
Right.
so I guess the question is he orange moving towards green, or is he moving towards orange from amber?
He's a little orangish green. He does hold a monthly staff meeting where he reveals all the numbers, the total amount of claims, the combined ratio, the revenue created, all that stuff. So he does a lot of information sharing and data sharing.
Yes.
Um, but it's still a goal-driven organization. So 165 policies a month. They set their goals based on the orange model.
Well, very good. Very good.
Yeah.
And so does he have an interest in moving higher into green?
Well,
Or
that's what we're going to talk about.
there you go.
You
Fantastic.
know, you know, the interesting thing about Teal is they don't have any organizational structure.
No.
The CEO is really just an advice giver.
Yeah. And I don't think all industries lend themselves to that particular model.
Hmm.
And I don't know why they chose to call it teal.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to use Lalou's whole concept around spiral dynamics, then why don't you just stick with that? So
Well, I think Teal is in spiral
it
dynamics.
is, but it's not there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's in a different spot. That's why when I first heard this discussion about teal organizations, it kind of went like, I don't think that's quite matchy.
Because they have Teal above green.
Right. You go from green up into teal, and some of the diagrams that I've seen actually use a different color for teal, like turquoise is sometimes
Hmm.
talk about it. And that, oh,
Hmm.
hey, Kathy, hey there, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Fine.
Hey, Kathy.
We're
Hi.
waiting for the bus to pull in, but David was just sharing that he's giving a book to one of his best clients. So go ahead, David, tell Kathy what you're
Well,
up
it's Kathy. I think you talked about it before. It's Reinventing Organizations by Frederick Laloux.
Yeah, I brought it up when we were doing spiral dynamics, and the
Right.
question, does anybody actually do anything around this stuff? And that's when I mentioned Lalou's book.
Well, I'm almost done reading it for the second time,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's a fascinating book.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I sent it to my client in New York who runs a small insurance carrier, and I'm going to talk with him at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. He's an early riser, so I'd like to get at him early,
Yeah.
and we're going to discuss the book and its application to his organization.
Oh,
And with
great.
what is your desired outcome?
Well, the thing that I like most about this process is the hierarchical structural advice process.
Mhm.
And I just want to ask him whether or not he perceives that there's an opportunity for that in the organization.
Right, but on a more practical thing, are you hoping this leads to training programs you can do, consulting services? How are you monetizing
Well,
this or hoping?
well, yeah, no, it's my you know, they're in trouble. They
All
were an A- organization, and they've been downgraded to B++.
right.
They've had 2 years in a row of highly negative outcomes, and you know, so they're not looking to spend money.
Yeah,
I just want to keep him on the phone and working
good.
with his team, and
Right.
this is a way for us to keep the conversation fresh.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing because, the worst thing you can do when things get tough for a client is to disappear. So
Right,
now more than ever, you need to be able to say, they've paid you well over the years, and here's part of the return on their investments.
right.
You're going to give them some ideas and point them to some resources, serving them and at the same time maintaining that contact.
Yeah. You
Really,
know, it's interesting because they set a goal this year of writing 106 or 120 policies a month in their production. And one year, in 2015, they actually wrote 6,000 policies,
interesting.
which is a huge number for a small company. And I think that that's what has caused their bad claims experience over the last 2 years. They weren't underwriting those policies with as much care and concern as they should have been.
Yeah,
So they
that makes,
picked up some bad clients.
Yeah, very interesting.
yeah.
Very
I'd be
interesting.
curious, David, what makes you think that that he would be interested in a teal concept or you know,
Well, he's a very eclectic CEO. You know, he's an ID in the disc world, and he's very verbal and very result oriented and very orange in his thinking. But he's
okay.
frustrated because the rest of the organization isn't pulling up behind him, isn't contributing as much as he is. You know, he's looking to light a fire. Now, I did recommend the book Trust and Inspire by Stephen Covey's son.
Okay.
But last year he took their core values and he put trust on the foundation of the core values. So I want to give him ideas to think about that can help him be a more effective leader. And I think Lalu has some decent ideas around the advice process and the structure process and the evaluation process and the compensation process and all of those things that can be brought to bear even on a small organization.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Excellent, excellent. So, David, little side note. Generally, when you're on our calls, we keep hearing your little garbly, metallic
Uh-huh.
thing. However you are positioned right now, your sound is crystal clear and consistent.
I'm not moving.
So I'm just telling you for the whole conversation we've had this morning, it has been crystal clear with none of that metallic kind of echoey stuff going on.
Well,
So
that's good news.
wherever you're at and whatever you're doing, you just duplicate that. And I think it's really good to go.
If I have to get up and leave my seat, I'll leave my headphones on the desk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because there's obviously it's got to be a Bluetooth headset then.
It is.
Yeah, yeah. So those things can get real dicey, particularly indoors with different walls and things like that. That could be
Right.
hearing.
Yeah, no,
All right.
I can only walk about 10 feet and it disconnects.
Yeah, yeah. Well, then there you go. There you go. All right. Anyway, so stay put. All right. So O'Brien's joined us. Hey, Brian, how are you? And there he comes. Can't hear you though if you're saying anything.
Oh, wow.
Oh, there
There
you
we
are.
go.
There you
That's
go.
good to hear your voice, Brian.
Likewise, likewise. Glad to be able to make it. The
Yeah.
internet's not that great here, so it's kind of spotty. So I could be talking and it goes out and I don't even know.
Where
Yeah,
are
yeah,
you?
Nicaragua.
Nicaragua.
Nicaragua. All right.
Who's taking care of your house plant?
My neighbors.
Okay, I was gonna say you've been gone for a while now. Unless are you coming
Exactly.
home on weekends or anything?
Not at all.
Oh yeah, no, you've been gone quite a while then.
Yes, I won't be back until after January.
What?
Yeah, because my personal retreat is in December.
Yeah.
So if we finish this first phase by the fall, that kind of, get to the border of time to leave for replenishing or retooling and refueling, as I say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, wow. I mean, well, there you go. Bloom where you're planted. So wherever you are, enjoy it. So,
Yeah, Brian,
Exactly.
I actually had a friend who had referred me to his father to do business, who went to Europe this summer and worked remotely all summer in Europe.
Oh, wow.
yeah. So I mean, it gives you a great opportunity. I mean, you've already been a world traveler, but how often do you really get to go somewhere and linger for half of a year?
Right.
Right.
Gives you an opportunity to really live like a local, or at least see what local life is really about. So
That's great.
Exactly.
I wasn't here all last week, but I missed it, Brian. Why are you in Nicaragua? You have a project there, or?
Yeah, I'm doing a population health project with there's 4 countries in Central America and there's 3 in South America. So I'm going between both.
Oh, great.
and this is
Yeah.
all sponsored by World Health
It,
Organization.
yeah, they're the main sponsor, and then that spawns the private-public partnerships on the ground. So I'm leading 6 teams, bioinformatics, healthcare informatics, and kind of revising
Interesting.
and building whole
And
systems.
and who's signing your checks? You know what I mean? When you're getting paid, is that coming from the World Health Organization, or
I
did
think
I
we lost
spook?
Brian.
Oh, there you go. I lost you there. He'll be back. I am
Yeah,
kind of fascinated because to coordinate such a thing, this is a lot of parties that are involved. It always makes you wonder, um, you know.
yeah, it's the World Health Organization.
See, I think that's pretty cool because I've always felt that whoever is signing the check is the client. And that means that when you can say that one of your clients is the World Health Organization, that certainly has a lot more cadre than saying like, schmo schmo charity is who's paying me.
Right. And a lot of these public health institutions, whether it's CDC, NIH, they spawn a lot of innovation challenges because they realize they can't do this on their own. And
Right.
that's how a lot of startups in health tech get started. So it's quite exciting, actually.
Excellent. Yeah, no, good. That's a great opportunity all the way around. So good for you. Good for you.
Brian,
Yep.
Yes.
can you come to the United States and fix our healthcare system?
I still have plans to come back and do that, actually. I thought I would stay here, but I'm going to stay the course. I was telling T on the Oracle self-call, I can hear my Sifu and martial arts screaming from the grave, like your discipline needs more discipline.
There you go. Exactly. You made your choice. You're there to learn. You'll be better because of the experience. So make the
Right,
best of it, bloom where you're planted.
right.
And, all right. Well, this is going to be a bit of an interesting kind of a call. I would have thought that my subject would have been very interesting to our regular collection, but we're getting smaller turnouts for this subject. And the subject is just empathy. So how do you become a better empath and all that sort of stuff? So I don't know if it's that we are not promoting it correctly among our circle members, or if everyone's just busy, or if it's just gotten to be so hot for so long that people are just
I
exhausted.
think for me, it's just busy during the summer with guests. Next week I'll be on vacation, so it's just timing.
Well, and and I'm cool with all that. As long as people aren't on the call because they're bored, I'm fine. It's like, I'll be good. Everyone can listen to the recordings. All right, but what I need to do, I think, is start by giving everyone the article that I sent last week. So I'm going to chat over to everyone. This is my article that I wrote many years ago. In fact, I think the copyright date on it is 1995. Linda and I got married in 1991. So that takes us way back. So 28 years, I guess, is what the math would work out to be. And as I said last time around, and I've said before, I did develop this to a certain degree, but it wasn't something that I could market or monetize with corporate clients. So it just kind of got set aside. And obviously, it's moved to the back of the stove and into a storage room and blah, blah, blah. But that article I sent over to you is part one of a multiple step article series. I think in total it's over 30, 35 pages now, because I've been trying to update it a little bit. So I'm giving it out bits and pieces. Well, that first part that I sent over to you is really all about assessing to what degree are you an empath. And the way you then look at it is by looking at the strengths that empaths tend to have. And also we want to look at the challenges that empaths face. Now, our basic belief going into this is that everyone is an empath. Yeah, they've got different levels of skill. They've got different levels of awareness in having those skills. They've got different levels of command or fluency in the utilization of those skills. So there's a lot of clueless empaths out there, and there's hopefully a bunch of highly trained, refined, disciplined empaths as well. And then the flip side of it is that if people are totally unaware, whatever, they're going to be far more susceptible to the challenges and complicating issues that being an empath can bring into your life. And so that's what we did. That's a little assessment. And by the end of it, you figure out how you're doing on the strength side and how are you doing on the challenges side. And that particular part of the big article ends with saying we can now create a matrix. And in that matrix, we can see how these two assessments combine to give you a location on this matrix. Now, because this is the circle of brilliance, you got to believe that this is going to overlay on the change grid. And so, because even look at the words we're using on these two axes. Well, challenges is challenges. And instead of calling it ability, we're just calling it strengths in order to resonate with all the stuff we're doing in the world of empathic behaviors. So now, if you guys want at any point, you can certainly take that profile. It's not sophisticated, it's hardly scientific. I just put it together for readers to get one of their, those kind of, are you an empath? Take this test and find out now, one of those kinds of things. And as you really read the article, you'll find out it's almost more of a white paper that I had written for marketing purposes, because I do sprinkle in little tidbits that say, if this is where you're at, you could benefit from more training to be able to better refine and discipline your use of your empathic gifts. And there's things you could do to take care of the challenges that are coming your way. So, obviously I'm trying to position it that that there's a spectrum from a clueless empath to a highly refined and polished empath. So why don't we move towards that end of things? And so obviously that was my positioning. So so have any of you on the call actually filled it out? I mean, I know I have. Linda, I know you did. So David, did you fill it out? Brian, Kathy?
I haven't seen it, so
All right.
yeah, no, I
Then-
haven't.
Then I'm just going to open it up and slide it into place for just a David, did you get to fill it out? Or Brian, did you get to fill it out?
No, I'm filling it out right now, actually.
Oh, fine. Well, let me slide it into the screen here, and you guys can kind of even estimate where you would be, and that'll help us do the next little section. So let me just slide. This is what I sent over to you. And so the two assessments, quick assessments, one is for your strengths, and it's just giving you statements like, I feel an instinctive sense of understanding when someone is experiencing hidden emotions, and you're rating yourself on a 5-point kind of Likert scale, sort of a thing. And at the end of it, you can tally up your score. And so I think that even without doing the assessment, you guys are savvy enough and self-aware enough to kind of figure out, where are you? And so if you, on your strength self-assessment, score between 15 and 30, we would say you have emerging strengths. So your abilities are in their early stages. You show signs of various strengths inherent to empaths, but they may not be consistently prominent in your day-to-day life. So yeah, this is where the pitch comes in. Continue to explore and nurture these gifts and consider seeking guidance to further enhance them. I believe I was trying to put together a training program for individuals who were by nature empathic, but unfortunately were not aware enough to know how the consequences or the challenges of being an empath were affecting their daily life. But I never did anything with it. I was focusing on corporations. I would be surprised if any of you would have rated yourself that low. You get up to between 31 and 45 moderate strengths. You possess a moderate range of empathic strengths, indicating a solid connection to the emotional world around you. So recognizing and cultivating the abilities, you can better harness them in various aspects of your life. So I would like to think that most people out there that we interact with are going to be perhaps there. Maybe they be as low as emerging strength, but I'm thinking people would rate themselves as moderate strengths. Interestingly enough, I have found that the vast majority of our human development professional team members and a great many of our clients will find themselves having profound strengths as an empath. Now, again, they didn't train themselves to have these strengths. They might have just defaulted into them. So it could just be a totally natural thing as opposed to any sort of a practice that they've tried to apply. So profound strength, your score reflects a deep and ingrained empathic strength. These gifts are naturally integrated into your interactions, decision-making, and experiences. So continue to honor, and refine those abilities. And so this just means that you don't need to even think about it. You walk into a situation and already you're picking up people's emotions, their energies, etc. So far beyond what they might be saying in their words, you're picking up on a whole different range of information about these people. And then 61 to 75, that means you had to answer 5 on at least one of them, right? I mean, the 60 would be giving yourself a score of 4 on all 15. So you start to give yourself from 5s, maybe a bunch of 5s, who knows? So that would put you in.
I just scored my exact age. I scored 54.
54. Okay, so there you are in the profound strength range. When you get to 61 to 75, your empathic abilities are exceptional. Your strengths in this area are dominant, playing a significant role in your interactions and perceptions. And so that's all great. So it's all good. It's all good. I don't know that we meet all that many master empaths that are out there. And certainly I would question whether we're ever going to meet a 75. Right? That would be giving yourself a 5 for every one of those areas. But 61 to 75, depending on where you are, that's all fine and dandy. So anyone else kind of add things up? Or if you didn't, that's what it's about. I'll do it this way. Where do you guys think you're falling just based on these 4 descriptions? Am I correct that everyone is either profound or master at their levels?
I mean, I would guess that I'm at the top of profound or at the lower level of master.
Yeah, I was a 50.
Yep. All right. And so this is where we're at. Now that shouldn't surprise us. Linda, where did you score, dear? I remember it was like 50 something.
56.
56. Okay. And so we're all in this general area. And I would hope we would be, if we're going to position ourselves as human development professionals, we have to have really strong empathic skills. That doesn't mean we've perfected anything. It might not even mean that you've ever formally studied what empathic skills are all about. Or if I said to you, how would you go about improving a particular empathic skill? I don't assume that any of you have ever done that. You're just, this is who you are. And so it's not as deliberate, intentional, etc. Where if we've got someone who's down here in emerging strengths, moderate strengths, they're probably going to need a lot more support, guidance, training, direction, whatever, to help them better cultivate this.
I do want to get better at it, though.
Yeah, well, and that's it. So you continue to honor and refine. And I think that when you guys participate in the Circle of Brilliance, you are refining these kinds of things because you're starting to make conscious and concrete things that are subconscious, unconscious, and abstract. So I think good stuff is happening when you are participating in any kind of discussions around this, or you read a book or whatever the case may be. But it's more about boosting your level of awareness and then trying to expand a particular strength. And by the time this whole series is over and done with, I get into great detail exactly how to go about doing each one of these strengths. So there's kind of a companion program that goes along with it, but I never finished it. I never deployed it. I never tried to sell it, but I did build it. So here you go.
May I
So
ask a question?
yeah, please do.
Do you think this empath is, like you said, probably not, none of us are probably aspiring to be profound. It just is, right? But
Yeah.
do you think that uh, this there's a desire, or there has to be an intentional aspect of it in order to keep improving on it? Because I keep
Yeah,
getting
I
these
would not.
insights from the Oracle of Self for myself, because in terms of the kind of change, like what Linda was just talking about, um, that I put myself in that predicament to be impactful in this industry that's a beast.
Yeah, yeah.
I need to affect change, and so I have to be able to see from multiple perspectives, think differently, and not necessarily rely on,
Yeah, I would
this
say,
is just
Brian,
it. Does that make
that
sense?
it makes profound sense. We'll use that word right there. Um, but I would say to you that there is a possibility, a likelihood, maybe even a given, that over the course of our lifetime, we are going to see a whole lot of unconscious, subconscious sorts of skills get better and better, even though we are unconscious of those improvements happening. Where, to your point, if we'd like to do that in a way that is more reliable, more targeted, something that'll expedite matters, then certainly we can apply real education to this, real skill development, real exercise and practice and discipline and all that. And that should help us do these things better and better.
Hmm.
So yeah. Now, while this all sounds perfectly lovely, we have to look at the flip side. But before we look at the flip side, I think it's very important for you guys to know that not only are you somewhere on this continuum, but so is every single person you come in contact with. So people aren't empaths because they've chosen to be in human development. I think that everyone's an empath, and some empaths decided to go into human development. But everyone who's walking around on this planet has a certain level of empathic skills. They might be down here as emerging, I don't care how old they are. They may be very primitive in it, very unaware of it. Maybe there's someone else, but there could be a whole lot of people out there who are also profoundly capable of detecting the sorts of things that an empath can detect. But for another reason, it becomes problematic. All right, so this is only half the story. We got to look at the other half. So the other half is, where are you on the challenges side of things? And so again, it's a set of 15 questions. So never, rarely, sometimes. And it's things like, I tend to internalize criticism or negative feedback deeply. I find it difficult to protect myself from negative energies or vibes. So basically what we're saying in these 15 is that someone who is a strong empath, or someone who's an empath, period, is also susceptible to the dark side of empathy. Empathy requires you to be able to open yourself up so that you can detect, receive, understand, whatever verb you want to put on to it, what other people are experiencing. That's beautiful. But the act of opening up carries with it a chance for your vulnerabilities to come into play. Does that make sense? Can you guys go like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. We're opening the door. Who knows what's going to come through it? So that's what this is really all about. These are the 15 things that people who are strongly empathic have to watch out for. because the cost can be high. And so what I thought, rather, you guys can certainly go through that at your own time and give it some nice, good thought and see which ones come forward and all of. But I think that just by looking at these summaries, you can kind of figure out where you are in this world of challenges. So minimal challenges, you experience very few of the typical challenges faced by empaths. This suggests you have either naturally developed or actively cultivated protective mechanisms that shield you from potential empathic pitfalls. So stay vigilant, continue practices that maintain this balance. I mean, obviously, we would like someone who has who's trying to really optimize their empathic skills while minimizing the negative impact of being that open brings to you. We'd like to favor the minimal end of things. Moderate challenges, you encounter a fair range of empathic challenges, but likely not in an overwhelming capacity. It's crucial to acknowledge these challenges and develop strategies to manage them, ensuring that they don't impede your overall well-being. Well, again, because I turned this into a program, you can assume that for every one of these 15, there's got to be advice that we would offer someone who's struggling there. So if like number 10 is a case, and we frequently find this with our customers, or rather our clients, not so much among our peers, but I sometimes become the emotional dump as people offload their problems onto me. So how many of you notice in your relationships with others that for whatever reason, people feel compelled or safe in dumping all of their crap into your reality?
Yes.
You know what I'm
Hey,
saying?
Tia, I have a question for you. What would you think about turning this into a 360?
Well, you can imagine I've already turned it into a change grid. And a change grid is just one step away from a 360. The only difference is that rather than assessing ourselves, we'd be asking some other reporter, or whatever you want to call the people that are filling it out, to assess you, to rate you against these. So when it comes to your relationship with David, does he tend to overextend himself in an effort to help or heal others? So even if you didn't do it as a formal 360 tool, instrument, assessment, I think even having these questions answered in a conversational sort of style among team members, among co-leaders, among partners, or the executives in the C-suite, you can really notice things about other people. I know that in my work that I do, I tend to coach more human development professionals than I tend to coach regular clients. And so I'm always looking out for evidence that tells me that the human development professional is getting too connected, too attached, too involved, that they're absorbing too much of the other people's energies and situations. So, and that's what I have to provide, whatever coaching and guidance I need to provide around. Yeah, sometimes I'm helping them become more effective, but you can imagine the biggest thing I talk about when it comes to becoming more effective is you got to understand tension management. I don't care if you're going to do that by watching a few YouTube videos or if you actually want to study tension management, but that's how you get better at doing this kind of work, because doing that deep dive into the change grid and all of its layers and participating in the circle of brilliance and seeing how all these things overlay and what I think that's making us better. But we tend to have to recognize when we at the individual level, or I at the individual level, am experiencing these things, and when I, as someone else's coach, might be observing these things in someone else's dialogue they're having with me. Yeah, makes sense?
Yeah, you just described me. I think I can get, or I should say, it's easy for me to get too connected if the boundaries aren't set.
Right.
Because
And,
I get a lot of calls of people are like, help. And
right.
then I'm naturally curious. And so I want to help, but I'm not always, don't have the energetic wherewithal to do so.
Right, 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 right. And so this is where we, one of the things I think we mentioned on an earlier call, but we get into great depth as this article series kind of continues. I do have to tell you, as I started rereading it and all that, I was pretty impressed with myself, I must say, but it was not something that had a market that I was involved in. So literally it just sits on the shelf with a dozen other things that I've developed this far, but never deployed. But one of the things we talk about is the dangers of morphing. So when someone is an empath, particularly someone at the profound level of skills, profound level of empathy, we use, perhaps consciously or subconsciously, a device, an approach where we try to meet the client where they are, or we try to become the client as much like the client as possible to enhance that sense of rapport and safety and whatever. So we morph into whatever that particular relationship or situation needs us to become in order for that client to be able to share more comfortably, et cetera, right? Is it fair for you guys to say that you're pretty good at morphing?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, the challenge is watching out for the danger of going from being someone who can morph into being a metamorph. And a metamorph is something that came from Star Trek, of all things. Nevertheless, Star Trek teaches many, many profound lessons in many, many creative ways. Well, this one episode that I talk about, in fact, it's part of this article series, is I talk about this one episode. And I'm not, you guys you can read the article to get the background, but bottom line, there is this person who is profoundly empathic and profoundly capable of morphing. However, in her particular case, she can, although she can morph into anyone, she has the ability to choose one person to bond to. And when she chooses to bond to this person, she becomes their reality, as opposed to maintaining her own distinct individuality or whatever. So she's a metamorph. She's going to morph into something else that, unfortunately, once the morph is completed, she is now there forever. I think that the skill of being an empath is to be able to morph without getting sucked in to somebody else's intellectual, physical, emotional, spiritual reality. You know, this is why we talk about detaching, and we talk extensively about the art of caring detachment in this article series as well. So it really has been kind of fun to be reminded where some of the things we talk about actually came from. There anyway, so that's the challenge for you, Brian, is how can you become what the situation you're in needs you to become without losing you in that process.
Right. And I have to make that, I found, again, from the Oracle itself calls, I have to make that a commitment, not simply a goal. To me, there's a difference between the two.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And that's why we're saying that a lot of the people that are at that precipice or have already found themselves in that kind of a situation, they may very well need to have their own coach or guide or training or whatever. They need to become more conscious, more aware, so they can become more deliberate, more, I want to say, responsible with their gift. So, okay, going back to challenges so we can kind of get to what I really thought we'd take a look at today. So are your challenges rather minimal, moderate? You encounter a fair range of challenges, but they're not overwhelming you. So you need to recognize them now so you can develop strategies to manage them so they don't impede your overall well-being. If you get up to significant challenges, your score indicates a high frequency of challenges associated with empathic abilities. This might mean you often feel overwhelmed or drained. Now, to bring this home, can you imagine if someone rate themselves as often on things like, my sensitivity makes it difficult for me to watch violent or sad news stories. I tend to internalize criticism. I find it difficult to protect myself from negative energies. I occasionally feel isolated or misunderstood. I neglect my own needs, prioritizing others' well-being over mine. You can see if someone's going to give themselves an average rating of a 4 and maybe even a 5 for some of these, we're talking about people that are having significant challenges. And then finally, intense challenges, the challenges you face due to your empathic nature are profound. They may often impact your daily life, relationships, mental well-being. It's imperative to seek resources, support, and strategies to protect and care for yourself, ensuring a healthier balance between your gifts and potential pitfalls. All right, so obviously, our goal as human development professionals is to have profound abilities, if not dip our toe into the master range. But at the same time, we need to keep the challenges, our ability to manage these situations, these occurrences, these whatever, so that they are minimal. And even watch out when they reach that moderate kind of level for giving it a 3. For example, we got to take a closer look at that. Are you guys in agreement with me on this? Is this something?
Yeah. T, what was that concept that we discussed a few meetings ago where people make a mistake? They confuse two things. They think they think of themselves as more skilled than they are.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Dunning-Kruger, right. Do you think that if you sent this document to somebody, they would read forward, see the information, and that would color their ratings?
It could very well, particularly when we look at the key activity list, mission critical activities for being a highly functioning empath. One of the things that we will predict, because it's just true anytime someone is in our culture is filling out a change grade or any similar sort of an assessment, if anything's even similar, we have a tendency to over-report our ability and under-report the challenge.
Yep.
That's the American mindset. We tend to over-report abilities, under-report challenges. If we read a lot of change grids, we all know to make a little correction, scoot things a little bit further in grid and a little bit further up grid, and now we got a realistic picture. So it's not a big deal as far as our ability to interpret what the change grid is saying us. We just always have to factor in cultural tendencies, cultural biases that come into play when someone's being asked to assess themselves.
Well, if you overlaid this on the change grid, T, and you ended up in a particular segment of the change grid based on these assessments, does it match with the behaviors at that portion of the change grid?
Lo and behold, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So we're going to talk about how it could cover the full range of the change grid, but ultimately we're going to shrink it into a more specific range. But nevertheless, yep, that's where we're heading. So now the thing that I think is really important for you guys to understand is that these assessments are not just for professionals. Every human being is an empath. And so what do you think it means? Like, for example, you have a manager in a client sort of situation who has, let's go back to moderate strengths, but they're dealing with significant challenges. That's a very different creature to be exposed to hear from than someone who says, oh no, I've got great skills and it's minimal challenges. So you can actually combine these two, and that's what this is all about, to figure out where do you land on the empath matrix. Now, I will tell you that there are a lot of people out there who might have little, if any, awareness in terms of being their empathic skills, exercising them, but they can still be deeply, profoundly empathic because they've had no training, they have no awareness, they're just them. They can end up having profound challenges as well, or significant challenges. So let me give you an example of this. How many of you know somebody who, no matter what you're talking to them about, they have the tendency to share with you stories of themselves or other people where there's a lot of drama that's involved, and there is a lot of projection of consequences and how horrible it is. You're hearing all of this story being told with you by this person, but the story that they're sharing is not something that they are personally experiencing. That it's just more like they're absorbing everybody else's ick and then communicating to the rest of the world, letting it spread, yesterday we were talking about how repeated messages contaminate the situation. So how many of you know people like that or meet clients that are there? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they are profoundly empathic. They're feeling something. They just don't have any ability to manage those feelings, or even they might not even recognize these feelings or understand where these feelings are coming from. So they've never learned how to go about really being effective in that. As a result, you have an employee who's got a whole lot of empathic, I don't want to say empathy, to me, that's a different thing. But all these empath skills are running at full power. They're picking up and absorbing everybody's energies, everybody's emotional states, everybody's everything. And now they're turning around and because of their own challenges, not being able to contain it, they're spreading it, they're magnifying it. When they share the story, they could be embellishing it, they could be eliminating key factors that would lower someone's level. I almost said lower their level of tension. Obviously, we're going to get there. But at this stage, the person who would be going through this program would not even know a change grade exists. They're not there yet in this course, if you will. All right, so I'm saying we're bumping into people that have got real problems, and we have to learn how to manage those sorts of things in our role as human development professionals, or just friends and family members and coworkers who happen to be really aware of these things. How do you deal with a person who is in one of these extremes? All right, so when you put these together, you end up finding a location on the empath matrix. And deeper in the article, I'm going to talk to you about a couple of real good case situations. So let me give you one case story and see if you guys can relate to this or see how this plays itself out. So this is a real person. And they are up in their years, in their upper 60s, lower 70s. And for their entire life, they have been a profound empath, untrained, unaware, but nevertheless a profound empath. They feel everyone's struggles and disappointments and needs and all that sort of stuff. And they have done anything and everything they possibly can to provide anyone and everybody with anything and everything they needed. Well, now that they're up in their years, they find themselves sharing their household with children that are in their 30s or even 40s. They're children that are that old. And these children expect everything to be provided for them by these parents who are now up in their late 60s and early 70s. By the way, these kids have brought with them their children, their animals, their whatever. And basically, these people have now metamorphed. They've become locked in to these roles where they are caring for people who are not in distress. They have created a situation that now they are rather stuck in. So how many of you have ever encountered anybody in that category?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Well, obviously, I think that if you're dealing with an aging population, you're going to find more and more and more of these. And so how do we now as an empath go in and be able to separate ourselves from what's going on with this person so that we can help them to become more functional? By the way, do you think the person in the situation I've just described is likely to over and out say, all y'all need to get out of this house? You need to be on your own. I'm retired and I'm up in my years and this is about me. Go away. What's the likelihood of them doing that? Strong, not so strong. What do you think they're going to
Not so strong.
Not so strong. They've made their bed and now they're laying in it. So we need to be able to find some way to recognize that being a strong empath is not necessarily a good thing. What's a good thing is when you have the ability to know what's going on with you. And so that's where we get into the matrix. So where are you on the combination? So did you have emerging strengths and minimal challenges? Did you have, scroll through, there's 16 possibilities. I think all of you said you were in the profound range. Did you have minimal challenges? Did you have moderate, significant, intense? Where are you on this whole thing? So we're going to look at a diagram that puts these two out on axes and see where they overlap. And I want to know what you guys might be able to tell me about these particular locations on this map. All right, does that sound remotely interesting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, because
profound, moderate. I was.
Profound and moderate. All right. So that puts you right here on our little matrix. I drew this up this morning, so never created one when the program was first being thrown together. But for strengths, you rated yourself emerging, moderate, profound, or the master level. And challenges, you rated yourself minimal, moderate, significant, or intense. Well,
So does that mean that Brian is downgrid in terms of his awareness of empathy?
Comparatively speaking, in the subject matter of empathy itself, this is where Brian would be, and we can overlay all the layers of the change grid and we can bring forth all sorts of insights around it. So perhaps the most important one to bring forward is, again, if we are assuming that this stretches corner to corner, top to bottom, then going back to the composite for a second, by the way, those quadrants are also, you just look at the energies. We would say that Brian, when it comes to his empathic skills, is an expressive analytical. That would be his energy around those kinds of things. He knows what's going on, but there's this upgrade. He's inside of the green circle for the vast majority of whatever would be plotting in that little particular quadrant. So if we can do a deeper dive and really fine tune the scales, then we can, with more precision, know where he's at. But generally speaking, when the subject is utilizing, deploying his empathic skills, where is he? He rated his ability as being from moderate to moderately high. So we're up here in that profound kind of level. And he rated the challenge as being moderate. And so that's
so
fine.
Where would I need to be to embody that this idea of empath?
That's the question.
Me, there's a difference between the label and what you actually embody about that label.
Right. And I would say to you that someone who's looking only at this matrix that we've put together would say that where everyone really wants to be is to be at master level when it comes to strengths and minimal when it comes to challenges.
Got it.
So you've learned everything you need to learn and there aren't any challenges you're encountering. And that sounds really wonderful until you present this thought to someone who understands tension management. And then you understand that if you overlay this top to bottom, side to side, that would mean that the master of empathy is going to end up being down in apathy. Right?
There's no learning down there.
And that's why we would say to anyone who would ever rate themselves that, my coaching to you was then, it's time for you to increase your standards. It's time to find a new mission. Yeah, you've mastered this, but you've got untapped potential. What's the next level? What happens? What does a master empath look in a world that is moving from being orange up to green, up to turquoise or teal in between those two? How does this role change?
Mhm.
So people who don't understand tension management think that mastery is the desired outcome. And we know that mastery is simply a stopping point along what could be a much more robust, life of development, constantly redefining what mastery even looks like and what minimal challenges actually feels like. You with me as I say this? So I don't think that's where someone wants to. That's not necessarily a great place to be. However, if I say, well, rather than stretching it top to bottom, side to side, what if we just said, we'll go back to a composite change grid. What if we just said, no, those four quadrants really exist in a little bit more confined area. So maybe it's just inside of this, you see where the green circle is, maybe it's just
Mhm.
these four that are now subdivided for more detail. Where's the epicenter for this kind of person to be, and how are we expanding? And so ultimately, the two questions we have to answer when it comes to overlaying something on the change grid is, number one, does it overlay? And number two, its overlay is where? Top to bottom, side to side, or is it confined to a smaller region because it really is a deeper dive into an area of the change grid that we already understand? Now, some might say that really mastery of empathy and of really utilizing your skills resonates very much with emotional intelligence, in which case we would say this map that we're talking about right now does overlay, but it tends to give us a deeper level of understanding about these four little sub quadrants or whatever. Now, I don't have an answer to this right now. I have some, hints and all that, but that's what we need to figure out. So does it overlay? I believe the answer is yes, but where? How does it overlay? Where's the epicenter? Where's its ranges? How does it get redefined?
It sounds like, just at first glance, I don't know that I know the answer, but it sounds like the epicenter would have to be somewhere in the center, and then the further away you move directionally, you become less and less of that. Because what I'm concerned about for myself as this profound moderate that's scored is, okay, I understand it, but because of this curiosity and all these other forces, I can unconsciously find myself in that metamorph state. And then I have to go back to, okay, what were my boundaries? So I started like this whole, uh, I call it, we have Kathy on a call, a self-ethnography study.
Yep, yep, yep.
And I call it Heal Thyself. So it's kind of like this idea that, as a helping professional, you can't, or self-care can't be optional.
Well,
So,
exactly. And
so
there, sooner or later in this program, it does get to the point of saying, like, now, how do you go about
right,
living as the most effective? And by the way, we even get into a discussion, how I talked about before about effective, efficient, and elegant?
right.
As it turns out, it goes back to this, because there's a difference between being an effective empath, an efficient empath, and an elegant empath.
Can you talk
So,
about that one?
well, we'll get there sooner or later. We'll get there. Yeah. But that's a big jump through the outline. Now, I would also say to you that I would suspect that, as you've just alluded to, that the best place for an empath to be is at the exact center of the grand change grid of life, because this is where detachment is easiest for us, and the greatest skill for an effective or an elegant empath to have really mastered is being able to detach from what's going on, because the more detached you are, the less susceptible you are to all of those negative side effect consequences, pitfalls that might be waiting for you. But as you move away from that center in any direction, you're going to have an increasingly problematic outcome. So it's radial in its trends, and the moment I see radial, I go, that means it's also part of the spiral dynamic as we move around this. So I think to really understand this, to lock it in, let's look at the four extreme quarters, and you tell me how that would end up affecting the performance of someone in their role as an empath. So let's say that they are someone who believes that they have master level strengths and they are in intense challenges. So they've got everything going for them and everything going against them at the exact same time. Now, we can know without me, making a big quantum leap, that this is probably outgrid to the outgrid danger zone. Would that feel right to you guys?
Yep.
Right now, why is it? How would they behave? How does an empath with tremendous strengths but intense burden of challenges, how are they likely to carry themselves, conduct themselves? What is their empathic behavior sound like?
Trying to gain control.
Trying to gain control. Okay, tell me more.
Well, if they see intense challenges and they feel that they're a master empath, then they're going to just do everything they can to execute the empath skills that they have to address the challenges that they face, but their level of activity is extremely high.
Very good. And so now, is that always going to be good? Is it always going to be bad? Or is it, lo and behold, situational, circumstantial?
Sounds chaotic.
Yeah,
Very
exactly.
chaotic. Well, let me kind of slide in what it is that we said for master empath with intense challenges. Transcendent victor. Oh, by the way, all these little labels, we were just trying to be clever. So we're not married to any of these labels. I just thought it might be interesting to give someone an archetype to connect with. The transcendent vector. So listen to this. I don't think it's negative enough. You can tell me if you think I'm right or wrong. But at this pinnacle, your strengths are monumental, yet so are your challenges. These intense trials, whether external conflicts or internal storms, are gateways to transcendence. Seeking timeless wisdom ensures every challenge becomes a bridge to even loftier realms. I seem to be painting that while there is something that is extremely driven going on, that good things await the person who can push through this, so can go from engagement to true execution. What I've just said is not wrong, but I don't know that it presents the negative part, that outgrid danger zone.
Yeah, because I would say, to David's point, like if it's that chaotic and you're I call it a crises manager, the what second law of thermodynamics says energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred. And so you're transferring energy from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing without any kind of baseline or without any kind of metric of recovery. That's going to lead to burnout.
Right. And so you're barreling through. And by the way, what are you doing to others around you while you're doing that?
Probably
Pulling them with
stomping them.
you.
Exactly.
You're either pulling them with you or
Pushing them.
you're just
Kicking.
leaving a mess, rubble behind you. And so I think that needs to be brought up. But again, I think that my goal when I put these labels together was to give someone the most positive thing that I could with just a little bit of warning. Technically, if we look at the composite change grid, we know that there is a part of that driven driver that is still inside of the red circle. 1010 is still right there. And that is a place of maximum achievement with minimal, what do I say, collateral damage. Right. And so this, I would say, I can say what I just said for the transcendent victor. That's right there where they live. But if they move any further outgrid than that, they're outside of that red circle. We need to have a conversation. And so there's going to be a section we'll talk about when it comes to empaths in danger zones. So now if you go too far upgrid, just imagine this for a second. I'll go to the other layer just so we got our language. Emerging strengths. So you really don't have all that much empathic abilities or whatever, but you're in an intense, challenging situation. So everyone's asking everything from you. You have no boundaries. You're morphing into everything everyone else wants you to be. So does that sound like a very effective or elegant sort of an empath?
No, everyone wonder why you look like Brian's head, like you pulled your hair out.
Well, and so you look at that. Why? They're in the upgrade danger zone. Yeah, a little bit of that is still workable, but it's still way too far upgrade. You're in stress. about what's going on. And if I work my way around to the other two, I know we're a minute after, but we work our way just to finish these. If you've got minimal challenges and you just have emerging strengths, if I said to you, well, you're just kind of in the world and you're just kind of going through whatever the world is at that moment, you know, there's nothing much is really happening. Does that feel right? It feels right, except I know that these individuals, as simple as their life may be compared to the life that is lived further out grid and even further on the grand change grid of life, I know they have a very small kind of world, but inside of that world are all 5 levels of tension. Look at that, all 5 levels of tension, so they can still be having, you know, the responses that they're having. Yeah.
Yes.
And then downgrid is where we already talked about, well, this person thinks they've mastered all the empath skills, and there's no challenge whatsoever. So are they good? I suppose, but are they still good? Or did things keep changing and they didn't notice?
Well, are they contributing?
Are they contributing? Exactly. Do
Mm.
they have that mission, that purpose? Do they have whatever it is they're really doing? Or do they just collect the credentials? And yeah, now they're in, you know, minimized, whatever. And it might be the reason why they have minimal challenges is, to David's point, they're not out there doing anything. They're not participating. They're certainly not engaged. Here's engagement. Oh, sorry, no, that's an engagement. That's intention. This is engagement. So they don't even have much of an intention going on. All right. So do the 4 corners seem to resonate with what we already know the change grid is telling us? Yeah. And so, yep, go ahead. I didn't know. Anyone want to throw anything in there? Yeah. Okay. So, but I don't know that it goes all the way up to the high levels. I don't know that it stretches, or is it confined to a smaller area? So that's what we're going to be looking at. Now, again, the reason why I think this is important for the Circle of Brilliance to discuss is because of these overlays that we want to do. The program itself does not really involve the change grid all that much. It talks about it, but it doesn't really go deep inside of it. So that's the question, I think, for us to talk about. How does this really overlay on the change grid? Is that useful? In what ways? Blah, blah. But the second thing is that we also have to look at this and say, well, how is this important for an individual to understand? So why is it important for people that are just going through the oracle of the self, that are just in a program to better understand their own behavior, their own thoughts, feelings, biases, etc., and then extend it a little bit to the relationships in the world around them? You know, so I can see how this is useful for both of these individuals along. You guys agree, disagree?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I asked this question before, but do you said that when you originally started this, there was no market for it, but do you think there's
It
a
wasn't-
market for it now?
No. There was a very big market for it even then. It wasn't the
Oh.
market that I wanted to go after.
Oh, okay,
I wanted to go after corporations. This would not fly in a corporation. I doubt very much it would even fly today. But if your market is individuals, if you're focusing more as a coach or anyone who's in that kind of self-development sort of sets of human development practices, then yeah, I can see how it'd be very important for you to understand this as the professional and for your clients to ultimately understand as well. But that was never my market. Now I guess it's more my market, but you know, so who knew I was going to put something together that I would really care about 35 years later or whatever it's been.
Right. Was this part of the Oracle of Self, or this is separate?
Well, it's interesting. I never intended this to be something that would get blended in with the Oracle of the Self. But both yesterday and last week, I found myself talking about the empathy sorts of things. And in part, it's because a couple of the people rated themselves as profound strength with significant challenges.
Mm.
And that puts them, well, if we look at the change grid, that does put them still inside the green circle. But on that, I got to do something, this awareness and getting into intention And that's, so these are the empaths that want to get out there and help people who may not even know they need help or want your help. So, you know what I mean? So these are the people that, and again, put yourself as an Oracle the Self student, as an individual. If you've got another friend, family member, coworker who is out here, you might be the one who wants to go and rescue them, but you may very well find yourself caring more about them than they care about themselves.
Mhm.
And this can put you in a very frustrating situation if you actually step out there enough to get engaged.
Right.
What's going on. So yeah, that's why I think this does help with oracles. But again, oracle students are really there to learn about themselves and how they speak to themselves and who they genuinely are. And then maybe, just maybe, it extends a little bit into that next ring of relationships.
Right.
That's very different than all of you guys. I mean, you got to
Very
do both,
nice.
because you're still an individual. So, well, we'll see where it goes. As long as people are finding the subject matter interesting, then I'll do that. Just know Circle of Brilliance is about the overlays, which we may never even mention on Oracle calls, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Yeah. All righty.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Well, we will continue with this next time around. So you guys have yourself a lovely day. We'll talk again soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, T.
Thanks, T.